Hi, this video is going to be in my continuing series of comparing the Beatles mono versus stereo recordings. And for this video, I'm going to be comparing the mono and stereo versions of the Beatles' second album. Now, what I usually do is I go through my collection, what I have of the album, and then I've taken some notes. I've listened through both the mono and the stereo version of this album, and I'll just give you my impressions, which track I prefer, the stereo or mono version, and then overall which album I prefer, which album version I prefer, the mono or the stereo overall. So this is my mono copy of the Beatles' second album, and it's a pretty decent shape. Doesn't have any seam splits or any ring wear. It does have the original inner sleeve, and that's also in good condition. That's the label itself. And then I have a couple stereo copies. This is one that is still in the shrink wrap. Somebody tore off the price sticker here. I'm not sure exactly where that was from. This is an original rainbow pressing. It has the original inner sleeve on it. Although this inner sleeve is not in quite as good condition as the last one that I showed. And even though it's in the shrink, there is kind of a seam split on the spine, which I thought was weird. I don't know. But anyway, this is another stereo copy that I have. It's also on the rainbow label, so I won't pull it out and look at it. But this is decent condition. A little bit of a split along the spine here, but otherwise it's not too bad a shape. And then this is on the purple capital label, so this was a late 70s pressing, and it's also a promo copy of the record. And then lastly, I have this Canadian version, which is called Long Tall Sally. This is also on the purple capital label. The track listing is different though. It starts off with I Want to Hold Your Hand, then I Saw Her Standing There, which of course were the first two tracks on Meet the Beatles. Then you get into some of the Beatles' second album tracks like You Really Got a Hold on Me, Devil in Her Heart, Rollover Beethoven, and then Misery is the last track on side one, which is a bit curious. Then side two starts off the same as the Beatles' second album, Long Tall Sally, I Call Your Name. Then there's Please Mr. Postman, This Boy, which was on Meet the Beatles, I'll Get You, and then You Can't Do That. So interesting collection there. Now the true Capitol stereo mixes that were released in America can be found on the Beatles, the Capitol albums, Volume 1. And this is kind of a miniature version. It's actually the mono cover. And then the back is a pretty fair reproduction. It's got the stereo, the tracks listed first in stereo and then in mono. And then the CD itself is a replica of the original label, like you saw. And so the next version of this that became available was through, you can either get it in this box set, the US albums, or it's also, they're sold individually. And this retains, it's got the replica of the original inner sleeve, and then the label is also the Capitol Rainbow label. And the back is an exact replica of the original album. Now these mixes use the, the stereo remixes, I don't want to say remixes, but the remasters that were done. With the exception of one track that I noticed. I gave this a listen through, and when I get to that track I'll cover what I found the mix was similar to the American version. So going through my notes. Now for Rollover Beethoven, which starts off the album, In stereo, I found that it was much punchier. The guitar sounds a lot louder and a lot clearer. The hand claps are louder. The vocal, it sounds like four Georges. For whatever reason, when George was mixed in the stereo, the Capitol stereo mixes, it almost sounds like there's four of them in the room, just because there's so much echo and there's so much reverb. The mono version, I was not impressed at all. It really lacks punch. The vocal George's vocal is a little clearer because there's not so much echo and reverb on it, but I just feel like the track overall, it sounds much better in stereo than it does in mono. The mono version just sounds kind of flat and one-dimensional. Thank You Girl, which is the second track on the album. In stereo, there's way too much echo on it. It just overwhelms the track. Just sounds too murky, just too overwhelming. In mono, the vocal is a lot clearer and there's less reverb. There's not so much murkiness. You can hear all the instruments clearer. So I enjoyed the mono version of Thank You Girl much better. You Really Got a Hold on Me. The stereo backing track was a lot stronger. The guitar, was more prominent. In mono, the vocals are a lot clearer and they're out in front of the mix to, I guess, the exclusion of the instruments. Unfortunately, the backing track on that is not very strong at all. It's almost, just kind of extemporaneous. There we go. Extemporaneous, if you know what that means. So it's really, like incidental. The vocal really stands out. The rhythm guitar is the only thing that's really clear in mono. Everything else in the backing track just kind of fades out, and you can pay attention a little more to the vocals. So I like the stereo version better just because there's more immediacy to it. It's just punchier, the bass is louder, and I feel like the echo, actually serves the song well. In Devil in Her Heart, the vocals are a lot clearer, and also the maracas are louder. It's a great mix. I have to say the mono mix for the American version is really enjoyable. The backing vocals are clear. In stereo, there's way too much murk. There's a lot of echo and reverb, and it overwhelms the song, and I did not enjoy really listening to it near as much as I did the mono version. Now, Money, in stereo, it's a lot more powerful. The guitars are louder. The piano is much louder. In mono, it's very weak. It's really a true stereo fold down because it's really like if you were to put one hand over your ear and listen to the stereo version, that's what you're hearing in mono. Just really nothing to recommend it. Not impressed at all. So I'm going to recommend the stereo version on Money. On You Can't Do That, it's a situation where there's so much echo on John's voice, it really sounds like there's four of them, almost like four different vocal tracks going on at once. There's lots of reverb, it's extremely echoey. In mono, interestingly, John's vocal is not double tracked, so it's just a single track vocal. So it's really interesting. I enjoy listening to it because you can hear and appreciate his voice a lot better. The backing vocals are a lot clearer. The backing track, it sounds a little weak, but again, just the power of John's vocal, and I like the fact that you hear that in isolation. It's only one track as opposed to being double tracked in the stereo version. So I'm going to go with mono on that one. And also the guitar solo is a lot clearer in mono. You can hear that a lot better. So You Can't Do That, definitely I'm going to go with mono on that. Long Tall Sally, I didn't expect that I would like the mono better, but I actually did. And mono, Paul's vocal is a lot clearer. The backing track is really mixed well. You don't feel like it's just kind of fading out there in the background. It's really clear. You can hear the instruments pretty distinctly. In stereo, there is way too much echo on Paul's vocal and just too much echo on the track overall. It just sounds like you're in a tunnel or something like that. Just too much of it. They really poured too much on that. So I'm going to definitely go with the mono for Long Tall Sally. Now, I Call Your Name is where it gets interesting, and I did not pick this up before because I don't generally listen to the mono mixes, but in the mono mix, the lead guitar is a different mix altogether. It's a different take altogether. If you listen to the lead guitar, especially when it starts off, it's a completely different track than the stereo version. The stereo version, and I expected to like the stereo version better just because it's what I grew up with. I heard it on the Rock and Roll Music Volume 1 compilation. So I really almost penciled in, you know, I Call Your Name, I'm going to like it in stereo better. But I actually like the mono better. Number one, because I never realized before, it really sounds like a different take. Although the vocals sound similar to my ears, it seems like it's a different vocal take and a different instrumental track whatsoever. So if you have a chance to listen to it, maybe you can compare. But I definitely feel like the mono I Call Your Name is a completely different take than the stereo version. And I surprisingly preferred the mono version of that track. The cowbell's louder. And the vocal track in general, you can hear it a lot better and appreciate John's voice. For Please Mr. Postman, the mono mix is good. I don't have any issues with the mono mix, but just in general, like comparing the two, I enjoyed the stereo better just because it's louder. I feel like the echo is not too distracting, and it's actually, I think it serves the song well. The bass is louder. Just the instrumental track is a lot punchier, so it's a good mix. For I'll Get You, I would definitely say that the mono version, the vocals are clearer. The guitar strumming is a lot clearer too. You can really hear the guitar being strummed. The harmonica is clearer. A good mix of all the instruments, I felt like, in the mono version. With the stereo, it's all really murky, very echoey, and just not as pleasant a listen. And the last track, She Loves You, in mono the vocals are very clear and the lead guitar is clear, the drumming is clear, but in stereo, there's just something about the stereo that I feel the song gives it a little bit more power. There's more echo, it's driving, and I don't mind the echo. There is a lot of echo on it, but I don't mind it as much. It's just, I don't know, it's something that it really serves the song well. So that would be the stereo would be the way that I would go on that. Overall, which do I prefer, the mono or the stereo? If I had to listen to it again, if I wanted somebody else to listen to it to appreciate it, I think my verdict is going to be the mono version of Beatles' second album. There were just more mixes that I appreciated. It was just, in general, a clearer mix overall. Stereo, there's just too many tracks where there's that echo, and it's just too overdone, it's too overpowering. It just sounds, you know, again, like you're in a tunnel. In some cases, the vocals sound like there's 4 different voices coming at you in all directions. So I really did prefer the mono version, and I was surprised because I didn't think going into it that that's the version that I would prefer. Now, I did want to say one thing. I wanted to listen to the version of Beatles' second album that was on the US albums, the most recent box set for the American albums, and I wanted to hear I Call Your Name because I wanted to find out if they actually used the stereo mix in mono or if there was going to be any difference. And I found that they did use the same mono mix that the original Capitol albums use. So you get that different take on I Call Your Name. So I was happy to hear that. In general, like I say, the mixes that you find on this album are going to be better, whether it be stereo or mono. I think on the original UK releases, particularly the remasters that were done in 2009. So again, this video is just covering what is available on the Beatles' second album, and I really, again, to my ears, mono was the way to go. So I appreciate all your comments. Anything that you would like to, also observe about the album, or anything that you want to share that you noticed different between the mono and stereo, if I haven't covered it here. In terms of album packaging, if I would just say in general, this would be the way to go because it's, again, these ones are larger in size. This has got a little bit of more of a cream color to it. This is more a vibrant white, as you can see. There's nothing on the spine on this one, whereas this one has what was originally printed on the Capitol spine. And it's a really faithful reproduction of the original album. It's got the replica of the original inner sleeve. The label is exactly the same. And, you know, overall, the mixes are going to be better. The stereo mixes, at least, will be better on here because you're not going to get the echo and the reverb and the murk that you find on the original Capitol stereo mix. So that is my verdict. And thanks for the likes, and thanks for watching.